Welcome, dear listener, to the world of imagination and intrigue. Consider to subscribe. We have more enchanting tales on the horizon. For our cherished followers, a special gift. 10 lucky subscribers will receive my short stories book in a special binding before it would be published to the world. Without further ado, a short story called Black Dolphin. A desolate landscape stretched out before the car as it sped along the road. The surroundings were as dull as the ride, colored in shades of drab browns and grays, an occasional flicker of dusty green vegetation, the only break in the monotony. In the distance, the stark outline of a heavily fortified complex broke the horizon. The car pulled up to the main entrance, an intimidating steel gate which bore no insignia, no name. Only a grotesque statue of a dolphin, carved out of pristine white stone, marked the territory of the notorious prison. The stark whiteness of the dolphin seemed almost ironic against the gray harshness of the prison. A young, handsome man in his early 20s stepped out of the vehicle, his eyes scanning the grim facade of his new place of work. His gaze fell on the white dolphin, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of disconcertment. The official prison name was Seward Correctional Fortress, but everyone on the mainland called this place Black Dolphin. It was an infamous place. The only question he had was why the place was called the Black Dolphin when the only dolphin in sight was white. Two men approached him and asked him to show his identification and documents. He opened his coat and he took out papers along with a letter he had. "I'm James Bennett, reporting for my first day." "Follow me, Warden Griffith is waiting for you." Walking through the imposing gate, he was first immediately immersed in a gray world. Gray walls, gray ceilings, gray floors, gray doors. While there were some variations in the shades of gray, Black Dolphin was predominantly monochromatic. "Come in!" He was met by the stern gaze of the prison warden, a grizzled man in his late 50s. His office was stark, just a table and two chairs in the middle of the room, a notepad and a pen the only items on the table. The simplicity was intimidating. The room screamed functionality, leaving no room for comfort. The warden pointed at a chair in front of his table and motioned to sit. As soon as James sat down, the warden got up on his feet and started to move. "I do know like long speeches and empty words." He started by pacing back and forth, his voice gravelly. "People come here for two reasons," he continued. "Reason number one, their relative is someone important, and this prison is a fast track to go up in the ranks. There are plenty of people here that our nation hates, a lot of them thinking about running away, though no one who tried to run away made it out alive from Seward Correctional Fortress." He paused for effect, his cold gaze fixed on James. "And two, they messed up and got thrown in here as a punishment." The protagonist swallowed hard, trying to keep his face neutral. "Sir, my uncle is the Minister of Agriculture. I have a recommendation letter from him to you." He put his hand into his jacket to take out a long sealed envelope and placed it on a table. A smile flickered across the warden's face. He sat down, moved the envelope with one finger towards him, but he didn't make any attempt to open it. "Say no more. I will make your life way easier here while you are with us. Maybe even let you catch a few deserters. You do a good job, you won't be here forever. I am pretty sure you will have a nice blossoming career ahead of you. I help out a lot of people who come here. In return, I ask when I retire, you will make my life easier at the Capitol. Catch my drift?" James nodded. "Yes, sir." "Good, but," the warden's voice took on a graver tone, "don't think you have any immunity here. Everyone is equal. There's a reason why my prison is the most dreaded prison in the entire nation. I don't let people mess up, you understand?" He nodded again. "Yes, sir." "Good. You look like a smart kid. Follow orders, don't get involved in trouble. If you will, then don't get caught." He got up from chair and James followed along. "Follow me." James followed the warden out of the stark office into the maze-like corridors of Black Dolphin. It was a drab place, the walls a dull gray, the air heavy with the faint scent of mustiness and something else, a faint, lingering tang of fear. Overhead, cold fluorescent lights buzzed intermittently, casting long spectral shadows. They arrived at a common area where several guards stood around, their stony faces reflecting years of hardened experience. One man stood out, an imposing figure whose demeanor suggested a combination of rugged toughness and sagacity. His weathered face was marked with lines etched by time, his eyes harboring a look that spoke volumes of the things they'd seen. "Alex," the warden called out. The man in question turned, his gaze settling on the handsome young man. "This here is your new man. Show him around and make sure he does a good job." Alex nodded gruffly. "Sir?" "Yes, sir," he responded, a slight trace of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Alex beaconed James to follow him. They went outside and he put a cigarette in his mouth. Now alone with Alex, James felt a sudden surge of apprehension. The air between them was heavy with unspoken understanding. Alex broke the silence. "First things first, kid, we're all equals here. If you mess up, it's on you. Your father, grandfather, mom, uncle, or whoever is not going to be able to pull any strings here." "I understand," James responded, his voice steadier than he felt. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud noise echoing from a distant corner of the prison. James's heart skipped a beat, but Alex only grunted, apparently unfazed. "Prisoners," he said tersely. "You'll get used to the periodic noise soon." As they walked through the labyrinthine passages, James couldn't help but notice the eerie silence that hung in the air. It was a silence that spoke volumes, punctuated only by the distant echoing sounds of the prisoners. Throughout the day, Alex familiarized James with the daily routines, the strict schedules, and the exacting standards that defined life in the Black Dolphin. The enormous gravity of his responsibilities began to sink in. Later, as they shared a quiet moment in the mess hall, James turned to Alex and asked, "Why is this place called Black Dolphin? I saw a statue outside, but it's white. Doesn't make any sense." Alex chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "Today's Monday, right?" When James nodded, he continued, "You'll find out on Friday. Don't worry." With that cryptic promise hanging in the air, James couldn't help but feel a twinge of trepidation about what lay ahead. But for better or worse, his journey into the heart of Black Dolphin had begun. Life within Black Dolphin unfolded with a harsh, regimented precision. James was awakened each morning by the sharp, blaring horn that signaled the beginning of another day. Breakfast was eaten in the prison's austere cafeteria, where guards usually ate with jovial animation, in stark contrast to the terse murmurs and eerie silence that echoed through the halls of the cells. After eating, the day's work began. From the cafeteria, he would either walk to the nearby communal office space to complete his administrative tasks, walk through the 6 main wings to conduct checks, or supervise the prisoners in their 3 labor activities. His duties included various administrative tasks, like maintaining the records of prisoners and their sentences, supervising the admission of inmates, and handling the transportation of prisoners for hospital visits. He was also responsible for ensuring the safety and security of the prison, conducting regular cell inspections, overseeing the segregation of violent offenders, and managing any crisis situations that arose. One of the toughest tasks was supervising the labor the prisoners were assigned to. In a myriad of walkways surrounded by high fences and barbed wire, the prisoners would be led to one of 3 places. A large part of the prison population worked in either of the many lumber yards that were scattered around the prison, one of the few factories that produced various items, or any of the coal mines. During one of their many walks around the prison, Alex shared, "You'll see a lot of things here that you won't be prepared for. This is not a place for the weak-hearted." James understood the gravity of his words when he first visited the coal mine. Under the dim, artificial light, prisoners labored, their faces streaked with coal dust. Their bodies, worn and exhausted, moved mechanically, resembling less of men and more of automatons. He noticed the despair in their eyes, the dejection so palpable it left a deep imprint on his mind. James's role also included maintaining order and discipline. This often involved breaking up fights between prisoners, managing protests, and even handling suicide attempts. Each event was a grim reminder of the hopelessness that defined the lives of those incarcerated in Black Dolphin. In the evenings, he was tasked with securing the cells, a duty he carried out with Alex. They'd stride down the narrow corridor, the sound of their boots echoing off the cold, concrete walls. As they locked each cell, they were met with the resigned eyes of the prisoners, a silent testament to their bleak existence. Despite the grim reality of his duties, there were moments of strange tranquility. During one of his quieter moments in the observation tower overlooking the prison yard, he found himself struck by the sight of the sunset. The sun's final rays bathed the grim complex in a golden glow, a momentary illusion of warmth in a place that seemed perennially cold. Throughout his experiences, the name of the prison, Black Dolphin, lingered in his mind. He couldn't help but wonder what Friday would bring and how it would tie into the prison's curious name. As the days went by, his anticipation grew, creating a sense of unease that clouded his daily routines. Despite the daily grind and challenges, he was learning, adapting, and surviving. Each day brought him closer to the ominous revelation promised by Alex. Over the course of week, James found himself gradually acclimating to his new environment. Alex became a constant figure in his life, a mentor who imparted wisdom and tactics necessary to survive the harsh realities of Black Dolphin. "Every prisoner has a story, kid," Alex would often say during their long shifts smoking what seemed like his millionth cigarette that day. "But it's our job not to listen. If you start seeing them as men and not as prisoners, you've lost the battle." In the administrative office, where they often handled paperwork, Alex shared stories of past incidents, tales that were equally horrifying and insightful. It was through these anecdotes that James learned about the prison's unspoken rules, the manipulative tactics of prisoners, and the brutalities of the punitive system. They would walk the perimeter of the complex during security checks, the looming guard towers and reinforced concrete walls, painting a grim picture of containment. Alex would point to different sections, elaborating on past escape attempts, security breaches, and the measures they'd taken to prevent recurrences. "See that tower there?" Alex once pointed to a particularly looming structure with his hand that was holding a lit cigarette. "A prisoner once tried to scale it, thinking he jumped the wall. Didn't account for the secondary electric fence. He didn't make it." The harsh realities of Alex's stories served as a stern reminder of James's duties. It instilled in him a mix of respect and fear for the prison, pushing him to stay vigilant and focused. The day-to-day grind also brought occasional moments of levity. In the mess hall, amidst the clatter of cutlery and over-tasteless meals, the guards would often share jokes and banter, a brief respite from the grim realities of their work. James found himself slowly integrating into this community, these men who were bound together by their shared experiences and challenges. Even the prisoners became a part of his life. He recognized faces, began to learn their names, their quirks, their triggers. Some were cooperative, making his duties easier, while others embittered and volatile, always keeping him on his toes. As the week progressed, James's curiosity about the prison's name only intensified. Every glance at the White Dolphin statue fueled his anticipation. He found himself marking off the days, awaiting the promised Friday. Alex noticed his curiosity and only offered a cryptic smile. "Patience, kid, you'll see." Despite the heavy atmosphere of Black Dolphin, James realized he was adapting. Life in the prison was becoming routine, each day folding into the next. The initial apprehension was fading, replaced with a resigned acceptance and determination to fulfill his duties. Yet, amidst this acceptance, the promised revelation hung over his head like an impending storm, adding an undercurrent of tension to his daily life. Friday came with a sense of impending revelation. James woke up with the first rays of the sun, the blaring horn of Black Dolphin acting as his unwanted alarm clock. His heart pounded in his chest with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Today was the day he would finally understand the meaning behind the prison's peculiar name. He carried out his morning tasks as usual, the routine providing a comforting familiarity. Still, there was an edge to everything he did, an awareness of the looming revelation. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the hours ticked down steadily, each moment bringing him closer to the understanding he yearned for. Closer to the evening, he found himself walking with Alex towards the central courtyard. It was a large expanse of concrete, surrounded by the towering walls of the prison. The entire inmate population was gathered there, a sea of uniforms standing silently under the watchful eyes of the armed guards. "All right, prisoners," Alex's voice echoed across the courtyard. "Everyone face down. Wash time." A collective groan echoed from the inmates as they complied. The protagonist watched, confusion etching lines on his face. "What's happening, Alex?" Alex handed him a hose, his eyes betraying a hint of melancholy. "You'll see." As the guards opened the valves, water erupted from the hoses. The jet was powerful and the water ice cold, causing an uproar amongst the prisoners. They began to squirm, writhing and flapping under the intense cold, their yelps and moans filling the air. James watched in horror and fascination as the coal dust washed off the bodies of the prisoners, the water turning black as it pooled around them. Their movements, their noise, their desperation to escape the icy water suddenly painted a grotesque picture in his mind. "They look like dolphins, don't they?" Alex's voice was filled with amusement. James looked at him, then back at the squirming, flapping figures. His breath hitched in realization. They did look like dolphins, black figures, struggling and leaping in the pool of water, yearning for freedom, for warmth, for a respite from their harsh reality. "Black Dolphin," he whispered, finally understanding the grim humor behind the prison's name. Alex nodded, his gaze not leaving the spectacle before them. "That's right, kid. Welcome to Black Dolphin." Thank you for joining for this short story by RM. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving this video a thumbs up. There are many more stories waiting to be told, and I can't wait to share them with you. Until next time, let's keep the magic to storytelling alive.